Hey guys, welcome to Battle Chads. This is Luis and Josh.
Hey guys.
We're here bringing you the new installment of Chad Magic Battle Chads. I hope you guys enjoy our podcast and enjoy what we have to say about Magic, the metagame, 1v1, competitive, everything that's going on. And we have a very special guest for you guys as well, Jack Goldsworthy.
Give it a second. For some reason, it's taking a second. Hi.
There it is.
I'm Jack.
There's Jack.
Hey, Jack.
So Jack here is our special guest of the night. He recently, just not last weekend, but the weekend before, got second at Axion's big Mega Modern event. He was unfortunately defeated in the finals, but had a very strong run throughout it all. How you feeling, Jack?
Yeah, I felt over the moon with the whole thing.
Yeah?
Because I'd gone in with a sort of like, I would really like to get the invitational invite. That would be nice, but I wasn't like, I had plans to go out in London with some friends after, and it was just more of a tournament for fun. Like I didn't have
Mr.
much
Popular over
riding on it.
here. He's like, oh, I have a social life. I have more things than just Magic going on.
But I didn't have anything like, I wasn't going in going like, I'm gonna win this thing.
I just remember Jack afterwards saying, "It's a childhood dream," and I'm like, "Do you know what? Every time you win your first major tournament, I'm presuming this is your first major tournament you've won.
Well,
you put a
didn't
lot of
win.
work into it. Well, you got the qualification for the you got the moral win anyway, because I think your opponent was Control, right?
Yeah, blue-white control.
Yeah, so you got the moral win. And I remember saying, you said like, "Oh, it's like a childhood dream." I was like, I love that feeling. That's what Magic's about. That's what gets you hooked onto this sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, it was a great feeling because it was also like because I only got back into Magic, like I played it as a kid and like gate crashed through like Magic Origins, and then I like sold out, came back in with Lord of the Rings. So it's been like a hot ride, as it were, and then this felt like a really good like, come on.
That was perfect into the first question I had, which is how long have you been playing Magic? And
So I played like a good amount, like gate crash through Magic Origins, but there was like years of the proper like potato tabletop play of like our best deck at the table was like a ramp into like giant Addyphage type deck.
Nice, okay.
But then started playing a lot of modern, but because it was like we're like 14, 15, couldn't go anywhere because can't drive, so couldn't go to any tournaments, couldn't play regularly, so then sold out.
Right.
Okay. So I'm really interested in, like, obviously you process through that tournament, but what happened today it sort of invalidates all the good stuff we're going to get from you or from that side. I mean, we'll talk about the ban that was after today first and foremost, but also the implications on A, Rhinos, and B, the rest of the meta.
Especially Living End, and poor George, one of our other teammates, is currently crying and having a hard time getting over the fact that ban probably, I think, kills Living End out of tier 1 contention. I'm pretty sure. I'd be very surprised.
For the avoidance of doubt, or for the avoidance of anyone not knowing, I'm pretty sure you'd be under a rock if you don't know already, but Violent Outburst was the only thing changed in Modern, so Violent Outburst got banned.
Yep, and just for I was playing Rhinos at the Axiom event, so
yeah, he was on Domain Rhinos. He ditched Team of Rhinos for the superior build. He saw those ley lines. He's like, oh yeah, that's what I want. I want some more random crap coming out turn 1, not just Gemstone Caverns, but ley lines.
I want that high ceiling right there.
Oh,
I just wanted explosiveness in the deck, and it was.
I remember the first time I faced you playing that deck. I got, I think it was game 3, turn 2, Scion of Draco, turn 3, Scion of Draco, turn 4, Scion of Draco. When you had a leyline out, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. This is the Magic I want to play. I had so much fun. I was on poor Yawgmoth.
It's basically Rhinos, aren't it?
Yeah. But, you know, there were 4/4s. There were 4/4s.
Yeah.
The Violent Outburst ban seems backwards. Like it doesn't hit the deck you're aiming for with the ban. It's hit other decks. You're just strengthening the top decks more. I don't get it.
So yeah. I actually think potentially this is actually a blessing in disguise for Rhinos, because what this does is sure it lets you play the sorcery speed, but the so-called best decks, well, your worst matchup is now gone. Like Living End is like your worst matchup that's gone now. So what is your worst matchup now?
I've got no idea. Blue-white control is miserable.
Knowing Jack, it's still Yawgmoth.
I
Yeah.
awfully want that for some reason. No, I think it's blue-white, like, but that deck only popped up because Cascade was doing so well. But
Yeah,
I expect that to crawl back into the woodwork because Living End's gone, so that's one of your great matchups gone.
yeah,
Team of Rhinos has gone, so it's now only the sort of domain left.
Yeah, because I mean, blue white, the One Ring tends to beat the fair decks in just value, and that was
Yeah.
really good for them. But it has trouble with the very aggressive decks like Prowess and that style. It kind of
yeah.
just dies a bit too quickly.
There's going to be a lot of feeding it. Like the meta's going to be in a way where there's going to be a lot of decks feeding each other. And
Yeah.
I just think Rhinos now is going to take advantage of that potentially without actually trying. I mean, after your win, Jack, I got really, because I wasn't playing Modern for a while. I was just playing Legacy and Standard. I thought, oh, I do miss like, 'cause I'm a Rhino player as well. I miss playing Rhino. So I did a league, actually streamed it, and I've played your or listened to yours. And honestly, like Domain Rhinos, it felt insane. Like I 5-0'd that league
Yeah.
uh, relatively easily, I'd say.
Well, there was some rounds in the Mega Modern that, like, it was just like, this is easy mode. Like, it was brutal. Like, some draws
Yeah.
were just disgusting.
But I
With
think
the
that's good tournamentship. So a good tournamentship to me is like you bring a deck that allows you, like, say for example, you have a long tournament, you're playing a tournament all day, or maybe even a 2-day tournament, and you have a deck that can give you, say, 3 out of those 15 games are free. That's 3 hours of getting your sideboard, getting back into your headspace, maybe having a drink, maybe having a snack, really getting sorting yourself out for that. I call it tournamentship.
It's my thought as well, is always like, I am confident that I am not the best player in the room. And a deck like Rhinos means I don't need to be anywhere near the best player in the room. I can be very good with this deck, and there can be players miles above me, but this deck has it in it to be very explosive and hard to deal with, and it just gives me the room to work.
But isn't that skill in itself, picking that deck and coming up with that rationality? Doesn't that make you an info? Because to me, like you make a decision in Magic. Magic's all about decisions. You can never make the right answer with Magic. The decisions always starts from which deck you pick. Like I
yeah,
always say, like
Yeah.
pick the right deck for the kind of tournament you want to go to, or you want to face, or you want to fight in, or you want to call it battle in.
it's definitely a skill thing. Picking the right deck. A lot of people are very stubborn and
Yeah,
they just
yeah,
stick with the deck because they stick with the deck and they don't
yeah,
change things or attempt to change things or at the very least adapt their deck to the situation.
yeah,
A lot of people just stay with their deck and they don't do what needs to be done on there.
no,
They just copy a list, keep that list forever. They like, oh, I like this because I know it works, and it's just what I have going on, and it's not really what you want to do. Sometimes you need to play the correct way,
Yeah.
and it's
well,
just one of those
Magic
issues.
Magic is a constantly evolving game, even like with MH and that. People are saying about Modern, like, oh, 2018 Modern, I want that back, but it's never going to get back. It's never going to be like that. And the only thing you can do if you want to engage with this game, particularly in now, well, even the Eternal formats are rotating in a sort of way with MH. You sort of got to adapt and you got to evolve and you got to be like, you know what, I do like my pet deck, but maybe my pet deck isn't the same sideboard as I did in 2018. Maybe I've got to buy these new cards or adjust my game plan. Um, and I think that choice is to me skill, and you showed skill from before you even started that tournament.
Yeah, it's a funny one though, because like I said, I got back into Magic I did like the Lord of the Rings pre-release, and that was my first time sort of back in it, and then jumped back into competitive with that first modern season, and I've done Rhinos that whole season.
Yeah.
So I've not really had to look to rotate off it yet, because it's just been Rhinos was one of the best decks when Scam was around. Then Scam dropped off, and Rhinos had a sort of short stint in the sun, and now they're attempting a ban on it.
Makes you wonder. That Fury ban on Scam made Rhinos rise up. Will this ban, just like Josh was saying, be a secret boon? Or
It's like, what was
what
it?
will
Scam
happen?
got banned first tournament after the ban it won. Come on, Rhinos.
The thing is as well, like when I remember when Tashana's Tybanda was printed, that created a real pinnacle in the deck because the deck went from solved to there was like what 4 or 5 flex slots max.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, how do I build this deck now? Like this deck has like 10, 12 flex slots now. Like
Yeah.
I think now, and before this ban, I think it was relatively solved, especially the teamer list.
Yeah, I was. Well, it's like the RC. The RC. I went into that tournament with a list I was stupidly confident with how I built it, and it was like the winning list was only a sort of couple cards different.
Yeah.
And then I think everyone's then started to adopt that list, and I can't really argue with the changes.
No, been solved now. But anyway, if you don't mind, tell us about your tournament. Tell us if I don't know if you've got the rounds, what you faced.
I've got my rounds up here. It was a funny one as well because I did like pre-tournament, like I'd had the deck for like a sort of couple weeks playing with it, and there was a few like I didn't love the domain mana base. Like I hadn't played with one before. I didn't really love it. It didn't feel great.
It's a really weird one because the domain mana base can be quite punishing if you haven't got the reps in with it.
Yeah. But so I was fiddling about with the list until like the FNM, like the day before the
Yeah, I
tournament.
remember like what a week before you were messaging. So I don't think the domain mana base is right. What do you think about this change and this change? We were just trying to run numbers, and it just it was difficult.
A different mana base, and then I couldn't get it to a clean position I liked by the tournament, so I just went with the sort of what was run, which is like the Xander's Lounge base.
That's what we discussed, right? We're like, maybe when you look at it on paper, it doesn't look right. But when you test it in theory with not just the stats behind how the mana base should work, but also in actual playability, it came up that it was awkward trying to change it. It worked worse. Yeah, really even though on paper it made sense to change it, it didn't really do that when you were playing the deck and realistically using it.
Because it was what I found was it was like when I swapped to like an Indatha Triome mana base, the supporting lands felt awful. But on Xander's Lounge, the supporting lands feel so good.
Well, when I played that league I think I ran the same mana base you did. I think it didn't play Gemstone Caverns. I think I just took that out.
Because that was the last minute before the tournament. I did like on the Wednesday before the tournament, I played a load of Living End matches with George from our team, and it became like aggressively clear how important going first was there.
Yeah.
Then like ran a bunch of like zoo matchups with Steph from our team, and again going first was aggressively important. I then played like FNM, and it was going first felt so important. So I was like, I'm just going to take the gemstone because if it in all those big matchups that I expect to be prevalent, it's important. Taking that gemstone, just stealing the play is going to win me some rounds.
Yeah, especially if you got the guild pack out as well, and then you've got access with turn 0 leyline binding. That's like.
Yeah, so I went with that game plan and then turned up, and it worked out for me very well. Like round 1 as well. Like, because the other last minute change I made was I wanted endurance in my sideboard, but I was struggling to fit it in over like Tishana's Tidebinder, and I ended up going with 2 endurance. And then round 1, I played against a blue-white mill deck, and endurance won me the best of 3. It was like, thank God for that.
That was literally the last second FNM decision that we decided. We're like, 2 endurance or 2 Tishanas, 2 endurance or 2 Tishanas, and we just ran the numbers. Like, you know what, endurance, go for it. It feels the best. Yeah. I bet you wish you had Tishanas for the final matchup, I'm sure.
I don't know if I do, like, because endurance actually did win me round 1, and that just set the pace. Because it was blue white mill round 1, which is I've played mill a good bunch because someone in our team again.
Blue white mill.
It was blue white mill rather than this normal blue black. So it meant the couple of the cards like he was just he had a few sort of cute tricks, but it wasn't.
It was surely just for Teferi.
List. It wasn't Teferi. It was some other stuff. I can't remember what it was.
Really? Wow.
But it was a couple other sort of neat tricks. But he hadn't played against. It was early rounds of a tournament like this. He hadn't played against the domain setup before.
Yeah.
So when I went, turn to Scion, Hexproof flying and everything, he just went like, right.
I think that's most decks though. Most decks will go right. I guess I lose now.
He read the 2 cards like a few times. It was like, I don't really get the. Oh.
Yeah.
So how do you sideboard in that match then? Have you got
sideboarding against I've got it up here. Like it's a weird one of like so you bring in like mystical disputes, endurance because you're trying to stop them milling you, and dismembers is the one that a lot of people I think thinks a bit weird. And then you get rid of your leyline of the guild packs and get rid of subtleties. But it's like the matchups you lose against mill are when the crabs just sit there. Yeah. So you need to just take whatever the cost is and just destroy the crabs.
And the thing is that Fire Ice and your the main list doesn't run Dead Gone, does it?
No Dead Gone. It's 4 binding and 3 Fire Ice I was playing.
That must have felt great. I mean, when they Tashanas you or Tasha, sorry, Hideous Laughter. Doesn't matter no more. Scion of Draco being 12.
Game 1, I had 10 cards left in my deck, and he played Tasha's Hideous Laughter, and it was Lorien Revealed, Leyline Binding, Leyline of the Guild Pact, Lorien Revealed, and like something else, like mass. He milled like 6 cards.
Oh, that must have felt so bad. Oh my.
But yeah, no, Endurance won me the game 3 there, so it was a good start. But it was one of those things of like big tournaments. You sort of want to get into the meta as soon as you can,
right?
So that you know what you're up against.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense.
And then,
speaking of this big tournament and everything like this, is this your best finish? Have you had a better finish before?
No, this is comfortably my best finish. Any
other finishes of sort that like finishes of note? Sorry.
When I used to play as a kid, it was like, I got sort of side event wins at like a GP of like the like 3-round type things.
Right. So this was your real first big win of any kind.
Because then this season, like I got the 1 RCQ win in the last possible RCQ I could. Then went to the RC, did and then, so this was my first proper like.
Right, and this is the second RC you've qualified for now in
yes,
this rotation of all the seasons that we've had of RCs.
Yeah.
You've actually done quite a lot of work, and you've actually done really well this time that you've started playing again. I mean, you've had some really good finishes recently, and the numbers that you suggest really highlight the amount of work you've been putting in. Especially the conversations we've been having as well.
Yeah, I was chatting with Louise about this the other day. It's like the last 4 events where there's like an RC invite on the line, I've placed the finals in, because it was like end of the RCQ season, I had 3 finals in a row where I only won the last. And then straight into this.
That was so rough. Again. Oh man. In one of them you lost to Duffy, one of our own teammates.
Yeah.
It's cathartic knowing that one of our teams is going through, but it's a bit like sobering. One of them isn't, you know what I mean, in that split situation.
Yeah, it's my best finish by a country mile.
I know some of the lads who were in that tournament, and some of the lasses as well, and I swear like there's some good players there, and it was very well deserved.
The other thing, I'm just still at the point where I don't really know who's who. So like I have the benefit of I can sit down across from someone and I have no idea if they're like Pro Tour player or they are just like this is their first event. I'm going in blind.
But I think that's a prof. I think that's a good thing.
What drove you to competitive play? What was it that was the driving factor for that for you?
I'm competitive in general. I like competing. It was always like in secondary school and stuff. It was always sports. Just because for Magic, it was impossible to get places when you couldn't drive, and like you couldn't get a lift anywhere to any events. And we lived like sort of rural countryside, so like our local F&Ms were like in the library, like 4 of us, because there wasn't a shop there.
Yeah, it's not like my play group around here. We rent like social clubs, and we played Magic in a cinema last week. It was great.
But we just didn't have it as a kid growing up. So then finally now actually having the freedom to do it, I've loved it.
You heard it here first, guys. Country bumpkin Jack Goldsworthy made a tournament finals. You can too.
Yeah. I'm just competitive. I don't think there's a better feeling than like knowing like you and someone else have both like prepped for something and you win.
Yeah.
Like it just feels, whether like you've outplayed them or you got lucky or whatever, it doesn't matter. It feels good.
Well, you need to be lucky in this game. Like you have to be like the amount. Like you have people who've done nothing but grind. I've got my deck right, submitted 0-2.
Yeah,
I've had those feelings before. It's what they say, right? Magic is a 70% skill, 30% luck game. You have to have that little finishing edge of luck to make it. And if you put enough hours, you put enough time, you will make it. As long as you're good enough, you will do it.
Because it is just like all the grinding is just to reduce as much variance as you can.
Yeah.
But you can't get rid of it all. You still
it's a card game, right? It's innate.
You still have to sit down and play from against someone who's picked their own stuff, and it's like with Rhinos especially. You can sit down from someone, and before the matchup has started, they've decided that they're going to win the game because they've got 4 chalice in their sideboard, or like people can just choose to win certain matchups, so you can just end up in the wrong spot, wrong time thing. But that all comes into picking your deck and everything like that.
Oh, that reminds me of poor George at the RC. He faced what was it? Is it Wizards with 1,001 different ways to dismantle Living End? And you get those matchups, and it's really rough sometimes.
Yeah. So then second round I had was Domain Zoo, which
Good
again
too,
I'd
okay.
grinded the week before, and it was a weird one of like a Teferi Time Raveler in that matchup is a monster, and I hadn't thought it would be at all. But like when we play tested it, he was a monster, and then in the games he won me every game he resolved.
Really?
He just stops them interacting.
Yeah.
Like all their counter magic is now turned off. If they've got any big threat like a carve or whatever, you can just bounce it and they have to pay 2 mana to play it again, and that sets them back a lot.
Yeah, it does.
Especially when
tempo.
they're
In that deck,
developing
yeah.
4/4s. So it was like I think it was my like game 3 against this opponent. I did like a subtlety'd his Carvu into a Teferi,
Yeah.
bouncing the Carvu again, and it's just he was so far behind, couldn't cancel my
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
now. It
That's
just
a lot of tempo loss.
yeah.
'Cause I play Zoo as well, and it's one of those things like sometimes it feels the deck curves out, and it's like, oh my god, how can this deck lose? And then the next minute and a bit of interaction, you're like, I've got a handful of burn, I've got no way to kill you,
Yeah.
and
It's an
I've got no.
interesting I was gonna say it's an interesting one with the like with modern. I'm finding is like working out the matchups whether you're the aggressor or the control or
Yeah.
whatever. And in the domain zoo matchup, found out I'm the control player. If I can just stall you and get to a later game,
Yeah.
my top decks are significantly better.
Yes. Yeah. There's quite a few matches like when the scam was everywhere. That's how I did it. Like the first early turns, I'm just controlling because when I top deck, I top deck a Charlotte Station. That's me. I win.
Yeah.
That's it.
There's a surprising amount of matchups where Rhino really is the control player. They just play a control player and then they just get in after that.
But
They
then there's
remove your
also matchups
stuff.
which I think is very interesting where you sort of got to thread the needle of like you got to control the first 3 turns, then get aggressive, and then you will lose the late game. So you've then got to close it out in that window.
Like Tron, for example, is a good example there.
I mean, it's where I found that Rhino struggles the most, where they can't be the control player. It's their hardest matchups. Yeah. They don't want to be the aggressor if they can help it.
Yeah.
It's a deck that just feels like you're trying to just trip your opponent up at the start of a sprint and just win through that.
Yeah. The Fire Ice is an excellent card to exemplify that. Tap down your mana, untap, because that's heuristic you want, isn't it? Turn 2, tap down your counter spell magic.
Yeah.
Play Shardless. Here's 10 power. Answer it.
It's very
I did a play that I thought was interesting against the Domain Zoo player. I can't remember whether it was this round or a later round, but it was I had Fire Ice in hand. I went first. I let them untap because their first land didn't have blue in it, and I knew I was going to cascade on my turn next. So I didn't want to use Fire Ice on their Triome. They then shock in like a breeding pool, and they can then counter my Rhinos.
Yeah.
So I let them untap so that then if they could play Carvu, I know I can cascade. If they don't, I know I can just tap the blue source and they can't fight it, or lock them out of reprieve because that's then a 2. I
mean, exactly. Why tap out the other colors of Magic when you can just tap out the best one? Blue.
But this is where playtesting comes in. Do you know what I mean? Like you need to with Magic. It's like I've always said this. Like it's not like you can study the theory of Magic and you can probably do quite well from that. But unless you get the reps in and the experience of playing your deck and playing against other decks and learning the play patterns of those decks and learning I keep saying the word heuristics of those decks, you're just not going to do that well. You need to get the play in, and this is something that you've discovered through playtesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's the one thing I have done this season, learning the game, was I have grinded matches.
I think we can all attest to the amount that you've grinded. You've definitely put the most work in to Modern by far, to just general play by far. I think than anyone on the team. You do it constantly. You have a lot of notes on it all. You're constantly asking to play, test, and play, and it shows. That amount of effort was rewarded. You got a huge finish. You did really well, and it helped you learn exactly what you needed to do against every matchup, and it was perfect. So if you put in the work and the effort, you can end up like Jack. It's exactly what you want.
You two could lose finals.
And speaking of that, how much do you think joining a team has helped you in improve as a Magic player and get to where you are now, or get to this position of losing a finals, like you said?
It's massive because I've got people that have a track record of playing well. You guys had all been to RCs and stuff before I'd started picking it up again. So I get to jump in with you lot and then test against you lot and play against people I know they know what they're doing, they know what they're talking about, and it just shortcuts a load of the like me
Yeah.
banging my head against the wall. If
Yeah.
I instantly know the person I'm playing against, they know their deck. So when I win, I know that is a competent win. When I lose, I know there's room to improve that, and I can ask the questions. It just speed runs it.
Yeah.
Especially when you do back-to-back sort of tournaments, or I mean, there's lots of people on our team who've got tons of experience. Like I throw a question out there in that team, and then I just see, do you know what? My question I'm going to ask is, I mean, there's no such thing as stupid questions. The only stupid questions are questions
I've
aren't asked.
tested that hard.
Sometimes I think this is a stupid question, and I probably know the answer to, but I just want someone else to tell me. I fire it in that team chat, and they're like, Josh, what the hell are you saying? And I'm like, yes, that's what I wanted to know, because I was doubting myself, and I wanted to make sure my doubt was correct. So it's great for that sort of input.
It sped run me massively.
Yeah.
Because I got in, bought the deck, like literally copied your list, bought the deck, and then it was just when anyone on the team was available, let's play modern.
Yeah.
And I learned my deck quickly, then started to learn the meta, then started doing the RCQs and properly learned the meta.
And then you learn your play style as well,
Yeah.
because there's certain things that you pick, like you really like Passager, like you love that card, and I wasn't as high on it as you were. But it fit your play style, fit your understanding, and that's like, you know what, I need to take that edge because I know how to play this card. I know I want this card, and I know where it fits in my game plan. And you know what I mean? Like, yeah, fair one, get in there. If you've got a good reason, I always say, like, if there's a reason for it, that's good enough.
Yeah, because we had like multiple times I'd come to you for like over the course of the RCQs, I came to you for advice on, this is my list, what do you think? And we would go back and forth, and we would come like much closer in deck lists, but still end up on different.
Yeah.
Because it was like it was like a few times I ended up with like 2 Murktides in the list, and you ended up with like Brazen Borrower and something else.
But Brazen Borrower is my card. That's one of my favorite cards of all time. I just love that card.
And it was just a good, like, both of us could defend our own positions.
Yeah.
And stood by them when they were attacked by the other person. And it's like, then you've sort of,
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's a lot you can go into when it comes to tournaments, right? A lot of information in them, a lot of preparedness in them. And one of the big things that I think is often overlooked in tournaments is, how do you prepare outside of just learning and playing Magic for a tournament? Because it's not just playing the game inside of a tournament. It's also being able to hold up in endurance and stamina of the tournament itself, your mental fortitude, your physical fortitude, because they are long events. You're there for hours on end. It's not easy.
Because this one was like, we first of all got the train at like 4:30 in the morning to get to London to play the tournament. Then tournament started at 10, and I think like the finals finished at like 10:30 or something. So it was like 12 hours.
It's a very long day.
Yeah. Long day.
And I had no IDs or anything, so I played the full 10 rounds, did it the hard way.
Whew, man.
Yeah. So what you said? So that was your second match was Zoo.
The second match was Zoo. Third match was 5-color creativity. The only time I played it before was at FNM the night before. I knew like the basics of it, of like as long as I can kill their little creatures that will come off Dwarven Mine, I should be okay. But game 1, I had like a brutal start of, I played Scion, he played Mana Tithe.
Yeah.
I played Shardless Agent, he reprieved the Crashing Footfalls, and I was like, this is 2 back-to-back massive blows to my momentum.
Yeah. Reprieve is a hell of a card.
Yeah, but then in just the mid and late game, I managed to keep him off creatures and had suspended that, Crashing Footfalls that he'd reprieved to my hand. That resolved and then eventually closed out the game.
Yeah.
So it was one of those ones of I knew the route to victory, and it was just I just had to try and defend it.
Did you feel more like the control in that game rather than the aggro, you think?
It's a very weird balance of like I have to be mindful of when can he just detonate his combo.
Yeah.
So there are certain spots where I'm like, if I'm on the play, for example, I know when I let him go to his turn 3, he can't do anything major, so I'm free to push a Cascade there. If I'm on the draw on the other side, if I go for a Cascade on turn 3, he can untap and do creativity combo and blow me out the water, and I'm so far behind.
I do think this deck as well, Creativity's deck is deck's going to come back from spanning. I think it's gonna. It's gonna.
It's a big thing for them now that
Yeah.
I mean, Rhinos has to tap out, right?
Yeah.
Or any deck that plays
Yeah,
that used
but
to play
like
Rhino Outburst has to tap out.
this matchup,
Yeah.
it was just I just understood where I could tap out and where I couldn't, and that just got me through. So it was
Yeah.
like there were games where I, had the Cascaders and just had to sit on them because I knew even if I don't have a kill spell in hand, I need to make it look like I do so he can't just go
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Shout out to
And,
Bryn
like-
from Just Play. Yeah, if it wasn't for him, Jack wouldn't have gotten,
It's like one
gotten
rep.
this far.
But
What was round 4 then after that?
Round 4 was the dreamy living end matchup. I won that one 2-0. I got
Wow.
the game 1 win.
That's interesting.
Yeah, game 1 I got the win because he only found one Cascader. So when I forced a negation, the first living end, there was no follow up. And then game 2, he stumbled on his mana and ended up not being able to cascade on his turn 3 because he needed to play a land cycler, which then led me to cascade turn 3, get out a Dranith Magistrate with subtlety backup, and it was then just game from there.
Because your sideboard plan was really interesting for this matchup.
I
have you just alluded to?
So the sideboard guide for Living End is I take out all 4 Crashing Footfalls, all 4 Leyline Binding, and then 1 Leyline of the Guild Pact, and I bring in Mystical Disputes, Endurance to Fairies, and 2 Dranith Magistrate. So the idea is you then cascade into Dranith instead, which stops them cascading. So then you just try and win the beatdown with the 2/2 and the 1/3.
Because you're going to get on because what they're going to do is they're going to play 4 or 5 mana draft chaff.
Yeah.
And you just get under them.
Yeah.
With the endurances.
So that's the game plan. I've seen some people in this matchup, they keep in the Leyline Bindings with the mindset of Living End knows you're on Dranith Magistrate, so they're going to go for as aggressive a cascade as they can, which will mean they only get 1 to 2 bodies, so you can then go binding. It's as if they've done nothing.
Yeah.
But I find like you then need 2 bindings for it to be worth it, because if you only have 1 and they've got 2 things back, they're still beating you down massively.
Yeah.
But if you keep
your Dranith Magistrate is not a good threat.
It's not a good threat at all. But if you keep in Leyline of the Guild Packs instead, you have the opportunity to go Leyline of the Guild Pack into your Scion and then into your Dranith. Now your Dranith has hexproof. There is no way for them to interact with it.
No. And
then you can beat them down with a 4/4. So it's just like I went that route, and me and George tested it heavily. And
it's hexproof. I thought Dranith Magistrate got...
Well, it's if you've got Guild Packs, that's like why you can.
Oh right, yeah, of course, because it's
all the colors.
Yeah. You know, I found surprising with this deck as well how easy it is to just hard cast Guild Pack. Like you don't even need it in your opening hand. You just hard cast it. Dead easy.
It's also I've seen a lot of people talk about like, oh, if it's in your opening hand, you don't have sight, you should keep it because it's great for pitch fodder.
Yeah.
And there's so many places I disagree with that, because if leaving it in play means anytime you top deck a Scion against a lot of games, that's just winning.
Yeah.
It turns like a 2/2/4/4 into a 2/2/4/4. My board has hexproof.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of decks can't come back from that.
You now demand 2 answers rather than 1.
But yeah, so I managed to beat him 2-0 because I just stumbled on the mana game 2 that got it to me. But it's like the interesting thing with the Living End matchup is they should be heavy favorites game 1, and then with the Dranith plan, it should be much closer to a 50-50 games 2 and 3.
I bet you felt good winning that game 1.
I can't remember if it was someone in our team said in the season, like, you never win an RCQ without winning a bad matchup. So like I beat Living End, and then it was started to be like, I could go here. There could be room here. But I got very quickly humbled the next round with played the mirror match and lost it 2-1.
Were they on the same
They were
build?
full domain. They had, I think they were slightly different, couple main options as it were. But it's one of those matchups where sometimes there's a lot of room to play. Sometimes it's just, have you drawn well? Have they not? Good game. And it ended up being one of those.
And then the round after this was round 5, right?
Round 5 I lost, which was the mirror match.
The mirror match.
Because it was round 1 mill, 2 zoo, 3 creativity, 4 living end, so 4-0 going into this. Lost the mirror match to go 4-1.
How did you take that loss, you think? Because Axion events are massive. Taking a single loss can be very detrimental.
Yeah, like at the start of the day, we looked at it and it looked like it was sort of you need a 6-1 or you're not in the running realistically. Took the loss. Like, it was one of those, like, there was no, I didn't play wrong. I didn't, like, it wasn't I don't think it was my fault I lost that matchup.
Sometimes just lose to a good player or better draws or...
Yeah, so I didn't, I just reset. I just went again because it was, I knew I was still alive. I knew I hadn't messed up in any way. So I was just of the opinion, let's just, head down and go again.
And that's a good attitude to have. That's what you need to be doing. That's
It's
you need to be able to take the L. Like if you take an L, like then Dave, you've took an L in a game you're loving. You're doing well already.
Yeah, I've really tried to focus on like when I lose, what was the cause? Was it like I drew badly? They drew well.
Yeah.
Was it I didn't mulligan right? Was like my opening hand just not good enough? Did I make that bad call? Was there a sequence of misplays? And just like try work out what it was due to. And like if it was something like a bad mulligan, I can learn from that. So let's try and take that from it. But if it was like I've just got unlucky, you've just got to move on because that is the game.
You'll just focus on it. You'll dwell on it, and you're like, I'm not achieving anything here. I'm actually not.
It's a hard thing to accept sometimes. Just be like, I've lost. It sucks.
Yeah.
That's fair. I mean, it's a good attitude to have, and keeps you level-headed, right?
It's a funny one though, because at the same time, like I've come in playing, and I'm on a decent hot streak of like I've did the RCQs. I made a good number of top 8s when I was doing it. Made a good 3 finals at the end of the season. So I've only really sort of been on this winning record. So I feel like a bit on a high horse of like I've not been through like a losing season.
And having that humility is one of them. Like I know I'm not going to mention, but there's a team member for us who's having a bit of a rough time at the moment, and we know he's a good player. And I think Magic players specifically have this thing. They have this identity of if I'm not doing well at this game, I'm not doing well as a person.
Yeah.
And it's not the case. Like it's just not the case. Sometimes you just need to have that reset. Be like, what is this? This is a game I'm playing. Like this is not my career. This does not define me as a person. This doesn't define me as who I am. Like this is a thing I'm supposed to enjoy. And the moment you're not enjoying it, you should be like, you know what? Cards go in the cupboard for a week. Let's have a reset.
And also be really like hard to accept that like you can be a better player playing like a top deck, sit down, play everything right, and you can lose. And that can be like
you could be LSV. You mulligan to 4 and you do nothing but lands.
Yeah.
I just laugh at it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to learn how to laugh as a Magic player because it's the game. That's card games for you. I think they say that the absolute best statistical players can only have about a 70% win rate at the very top of everything. Anything higher than that gets a little suspicious. And that's just the realistic nature of it all. It is what it is. Learn to laugh, learn to have fun with it. And at the end of the day, you want to sit down to play a game of Magic with the mindset of having fun. Yes, you want to win. Yes, you want to be competitive. But if you can't have fun while playing it, you're losing out on the whole reason to play Magic.
Yeah, what you do. It's a hobby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I also think it's one of the...
People fall out over it. Why? Why?
It's also one of those ones. It does really pay to just have the ability to be able to sit down after a game and go like, "Why did I lose?" Because it's like I think that's benefited me this season because I've made so many misplays in like the early season that then come the like late season I wasn't making and it was winning me games, not missing those spots.
I do understand the point of view of I've put so much effort into this and I've come and I've scrubbed out.
Yeah,
and that you have to have a strong character to be like that sucks, but
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? No one thinks any worse of you for it. No one thinks scrub. No one thinks, and if those people do, you don't want those people around you anyway. Like, you just don't.
I definitely met more than my fair share of Magic players that they become unpleasant people because they just don't know how to take the hit, move on, and just live life.
I had one game in the RCQ season that I remember so clearly of like it was a mirror match. It was one of my first RCQs, and the Rhinos mirror match can sometimes be miserable. It can just be who draws better wins it. And we played the match, and I drew a lot better, crushed it, clean win. And at the end, went, as you do at the end of the game, "Oh, I'm sorry if you lost, good game." And they were just getting up and like swearing and screaming, and it was such like a this
Why?
isn't like you're a bad player. This is you just got really unlucky.
There was one time I I felt one of my feel bad moments was the Axion tournament won last year. The day before I played the Mega Modern, and I had a clean. I think I was like 4-0 or something, or 5-0. I was going into my fourth or fifth round. I forget which one it was.
Yeah.
I was against the Mirror, and I cleanly won game 1. Game 2, cast foul outburst. I had a commandeer in hand, and I was like, "Oh my god, I've won this game again. I'm going like this is me. I'm on a streak." And I commandeered before the cascade trigger because I was so excited. And if I just would have took a breather, and I was like, "Oh my god, what have I done?" I didn't mean to do it like that. I meant to do it, and he was a bit confused, so he got the judge, and then the judge obviously ruled that I took control of the thing and I lost the rider. And I was like, because I'd forced negation up, so he did it in my turn. So I'd forced negation up. I had commandeer, so even if he forced negation that or countered that, like I was getting his rhinos, like it was, I was gonna get him. I was like, I honestly, I thought about that, and then it came against. I think I won that. I lost the next 3 rounds then, or whatever it was, because my head was just gone because I disappointed myself. And I was just
like the head game can be so impactful. Like if you do lose your head, you can just start to snowball losses.
We have a professional tilter on our team, so trust me, it's something that everyone needs to work on. It's one of the hardest skills in Magic, I think.
Like I wasn't disappointed. Like I tried. I hope it didn't come across to this guy. I don't think it did. Like I was being like a bad salty person. I was just very disappointed with myself.
Yeah.
I know I'm better than that.
Yeah.
I just didn't perform.
I've been there.
And I'm like, I've just disappointed myself. And I'm like, if I was just not so excitable, like it's like you have the win and you just mess it up in the most obvious way possible, and those moments for me are hard to recock. And I just think, you know what? Just laugh about it. You're an idiot.
You need to.
You have to laugh at yourself.
One of the best things you can do. You just learn to have fun, laugh at life, laugh at the game, and
Plus, it creates good banter at the end of the day. Like, lads, I've done this, and you're like, you absolute scrub, and you're like, ah.
If there's anything I love, it's banter and absolute just ripping to people in Magic. Oh, it's my favorite pastime. Everyone at my locals will tell you it is all I do every day, all day. It's the best way to live.
To do that though, you've got to be in that. You've got to have that relationship with that person. Though. You wouldn't be doing that to some random person.
I have that relationship with everybody. I make sure of it. I'm sure all the UK grinders will tell you whenever.
I bet you though, like if that person though said to you, Lewis, have you got any advice? You'd be like, actually, I do. Yeah, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm always happy to offer whatever I can. I'm not saying I'm even that good of a Magic player, but I like to think I know a thing or two and offer what advice I can. And it seems to work out for the most part. I have a decent record when it comes to competitive play.
I think what I like about you is you think of stuff that I don't think of because you think of weird stuff.
I mean, I'm a Burning Inquiry Hollow One player at heart. A lot of weird stuff came up with that deck. It's what happens, right?
Yeah. So you lost to the Mirror.
Yeah, lost to the Mirror match. Round 6, I was against Scam, which I was surprised to see, let alone at the sort of top tables after it being doing badly
high
recently.
Up,
but played against Scam, and the cards aligned, and I wanted this deck to be explosive, and I had it in game 1.
Yeah.
Malta 6. Keep the hand. Pre-game action, Gemstone and Guild Pact.
Nice.
Disgusting.
They went turn 1 Ragavan. I went turn 1 Scion of Draco with all the abilities into a turn 2 Shardless. It's like, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
You deserved to have gotten the griefed turn 1 with that one. Oh my god.
It was just one of those, like, the deck was built to have that explosive start. I put the Gemstone in for that explosive start, and then it lined up, and it was disgusting.
You're just built different, Jack. Jesus Christ.
But yeah, so I won that. Like I think Rhinos had a good matchup against Scam, and then Domain has a much better matchup against Scam.
Yeah,
and I just felt comfortable that
Scam
matchup.
is struggling these days, honestly.
Yeah. Especially if it's like hexproof industrial, like
good luck.
Hexproof,
yeah. And then first strike vigilance life, like you just take away every little advantage they were gonna get.
Yeah.
But then last round, we couldn't work out whether we could,
Sorry,
I could
just
ID or
before you
not.
move on, mate.
Go on.
Sideboarding on the scam. What was your sideboard plan for
Sideboard
that?
scam, take out all force and negations, and then
Yeah.
bring in dismembers and Teferis.
Right.
Some
Yeah.
people bring in like
Fairies,
endurance.
interesting. Endurance is a trap against scam. I think
I
endurance
don't
is a trap
think it
against scam.
does a lot, whereas Teferi, it cuts out a lot of them playing at instant speed. So like they can't do the reses as a combat trick, right? So they can't surprise that. And you can also just bounce stuff. And if they've scammed out a grief, and then don't find the lands to back it up, and you bounce it, they can't grief scam it again because they can't do instant speed.
It's also when you subtlety their grief, it's way worse for them than it is for you, because you're going to lose 2 cards anyway.
Yeah.
But now they've effectively if they want to do that again, they're like 5 cards down, because they've got to do the 2 initially. You've bounced it back, they choose it to put at the top of the graveyard at the bottom.
So
that's a
card.
Draw. You denied a draw, so that's 2. Then the card at the Undying in the hand. Yeah.
And very often they just can't. They can't pitch again because they didn't have a third or a fourth or whatever black card.
If they can pitch again, you tend to end up in a game where like both of you are instantly off the top of your deck, and Rhinos is a much scarier top of the deck than than Scam is.
And obviously,
like Fable.
Yeah.
Rhinos.
Do you know what's interesting though? Even though we've had this ban announcement with the Violent Outburst, these game heuristics, these game patterns that you're saying don't actually change. Like none of it changes. The only thing is that you don't have the unset Violent Outburst. Like none of this explosive start changes. You could still turn 1 Guild Pack, turn 2 Scion, turn 3 make your Rhinos. Like that still exists. It doesn't change.
A lot of the games in the Mega Modern I1 will through Shardless, which is fully sorcery speed play. Like it's the deck half the time was operating like that anyway, and it.
LSV sent an article.
No one saw you play Shardless Age and went, "Oh, that's beatable."
So LSV wrote an article recently, it's the same day, and it's a really good article on Channel Fireball. I recommend people read it. And it's he basically said that Force Negation is now in a position where it's stopping the stupid stuff and it's not protecting combo.
Yeah, that's what it's been doing for me.
Yeah, which is like it's perfect. Like
that's what you want Force Negation to do. That was the point of Force Negation. They don't want to print Force of Will, right? They were printing Force Negation for a reason.
But if you look at like a lot of the sideboard guide of like Rhinos players, they are often like the counterspell heavy matchups. You'll often see it come out because Force of Negation is no match for like Spell Pierce, Flusterstorms, and the cheap counterspells those decks can play.
Yeah.
So we're never winning those counterspell battles with a Force of Negation. We often just sideboard them out and go a different route.
Yeah. Yeah, so the counterspell games, you're not bringing in Force Negation.
Like a lot of people have the opinion that like that's what they were doing. Like against a Murktide, you'd be battering it through with a Force Negation. But when they go Spell Pierce to your Flusters, like it's just
it's a resource game. So it's a tempo matchup. It's a resource game. Whoever out resources the other person will win.
Yeah,
and that's what it's like. It's a bit like in Legacy, your Delver mirrors, or your Death Shadow versus Delver, or you board out your Force of Wills, because Force of Will is a bad card. Like it's awful. Like getting rid of a card, losing a life is a massive cost. But in Legacy, it fits because if you don't do that, you will lose the game. Like it's either pay this cost or lose the game, so it's worth it. But the actual card itself, the actual card value itself, Force of Will is an awful counterspell.
Because if you don't have it against the big bad combo decks or the very BS kind of things, you have to have it.
Yeah.
And that's why
what Force Negation feels like.
Yeah, that's why exactly. So that's why you take it out in those matchups, because you don't want to pitch 2 cards in a deck that's playing expressive iteration. You know what I mean?
I just want my Force of Negations to defeat those slimy, dirty, just absolutely dastardly
Amulets,
Goblin Charbelcher Amulet players, and they disgust me. You hear me, Peter? You're the worst kind of player ever. But it's one of those things, right? I'm glad that there is some positives out of this Violent Outburst banning, because it is a little bit out of place. We'll touch on that in just a second, of course. Just let's finish up with just Jack your final round, right? It was round 7.
Round 7 was we didn't know whether I could ID or not. Like we were talking about it because I finished the scam round quite early, so we were talking about it with the team, trying to sort of work it out, and it wasn't clear or obvious.
Yeah. How did it feel having to actually play that final round? Because a lot of people, they're used to IDing the final round.
Yeah, it was a weird one because like going into the day, I didn't have that sort of pressure on myself of I'm going to smash this tournament. so getting here, I felt so calm and relaxed, and because there was no like I'm gonna be able to ID sort of thing going
Right.
into that round. Like I thought there's a high chance I'd have to play out my full rounds after I got the loss. So like getting to that position and starting to have the actual conversation, it didn't feel like the end of the world.
Sure.
But it was like, because I know I had one in the actual RCQ season where I had the sort of, I can ID my final round. I got paired up. My opponent didn't have to ID. He could lose the round and make top 8. So he chose to play to try and get first seed. And I remember that one tilted me to Kingdom Come, because then I'd gone from I can ID and make it into, if I lose, I'm out. If I win, I'm in.
Right.
Yeah.
So that one tilted me to high hell. But this one, I was so calm. You know, my opponent as well, he didn't really know the math, so it was sort of us all chatting, trying to work it out, and we sort of went, we think we can, but we're not confident on this at all. So let's go. Let's just lock it.
Yeah.
What was that final round?
Final round was another domain zoo. Game 1 was very tight. It was just, you know, what I'd expect from the matchup. And then game 2, I think he had like a multi 5 or 4. And I had the perfect like Scion into Shardless draw, and it was just clean cut. There was like the cards just dropped him on that one.
Yeah. Man,
that's
so you can have those sort of draws.
Yeah.
Because the mana base is so awful.
Yeah. But yeah, so then that was the end of the Swiss, and that left me at 6-1, which I was then second in the standings for Swiss. So then I had a good, you know, ending up having to play all the rounds, but I had a good position in the top 8 to, you know.
Yeah, so you would have been on the you were on the play for most of your.
Yeah, I was on the play all of the knockout.
Who was first in the Swiss?
So first in the Swiss was, oh god, who was it? I can't actually remember. I think he was on Amulet. Let's see if I can find the tournament real quick.
Of course he was.
Dirty
yeah, it was Neil Batten on Amulet Titan. Right. Then you got me on Rhinos, third, Gavin Thacker, Domain Zoo. Fourth place, his name isn't on Melee, Eri something. Then you've got Todd on 4-color Omnath, from Templar. Alex Winter on Domain Zoo, 6th.
I think you'll see that 4-color list more in this ban. We'll talk about what we expect in the modern meta game to look like in a bit, but we'll just finish up this tournament report. Then.
7th, his name again's not on Melee, but he was on Creativity. And then 8th was Jasper on the blue-white control.
Right. So, and then who was your quarters, semis, and then
quarterfinals was 4-color Creativity, the same guy I played in round 3.
Right.
So we got to run it back, and it went a lot smoother than it did in Swiss. Like this, nice. Like in Swiss, I had to go through like the Mana Tithe and the reprieves. He just didn't have them this time, so it went much cleaner on my pressure, and I had the answers when I needed them for his shenanigans. Nice. So it was a fairly clean one. Semi-finals was it says Domain Zoo here, but it wasn't. It was the Todd on 4-color Omnath.
Yeah.
Which I got because I finished my quarterfinals before him. I got to watch the end of his game and got sort of a rough idea if there was any, you know, secret shenanigans in his deck, because he also happened to be playing against Domain Zoo.
Tournament shift right there. Good.
Yeah, but I got to watch him playing against essentially my deck.
All these colors, creativity with all the colors, 4-color Omnath with all the colors.
But yeah, so I got to watch the end of his game before me and him shuffled up and played, and I just pedal to the metal, went full gas, and it worked. You know, I had the gemstone in game 2, so I got to go first game 1, first game 2.
Nice.
Paying dividends.
Yeah, and when Rhinos, you know, can get pressure on, it can be really hard to sort of get out of that hole.
How do you board against that? Because I have an idea how I would.
So Omnath depends if they've got Halfling or not.
Yeah.
Because if they've got Halfling, I'm bringing in Dismembers and less counter magic. But I don't think I saw Halflings from him, so it was just 3 Mystical Disputes. I got rid of all of my guild pacts and then brought in 1 endurance in my last slot as just a extra beta, essentially. Like I don't think the shuffling side of it mattered. It was just here's an extra body to throw at him. Which you do in quite a few matchups, weirdly, but it's not bad. Like for like 3 mana, 3/4's not the worst, to be fair.
Especially if you do it in their turn, make them have the answer in their turn.
Flash,
And when they're already trying to use their mana to stop like either a Scion or 2 4/4s, or like they're already battling other stuff.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so it was just all about add to the pressure, and that matchup was just I had gas and it went, you know, and I can't really say much on it.
Actually, in the tournament I won in Axion last year, I actually faced Todd in the
Really?
round one, top of the 8. Yeah, and he's such a nice bloke. Like I quite like the lads from Templar. They're always
That it was
dead
all
friendly.
tournament. I had like genuinely what the nicest tournament I've been at. Like
Yeah,
everyone was lovely. Everyone was really chatty. It was really nice.
yeah. Just good crack. Like
Yeah.
it's just.
Yeah.
But then also, this was the childhood dream round though of like I'm playing on stream. I finally got there.
Oh man, we were at a dinner party. I was with Christian and our other halves watching this as the girls were getting everything ready for the dinner party. Christian and I were just sitting glued to the TV watching Jack take on Todd. Oh, that was something else.
Will did a good job with that stream.
Yeah, no, I
He
went back
continues to
and
do that.
I've seen a couple of clips of it, and yeah, no, I also he gave me the 2 Rhinos tokens, which I really
Yeah, that was
appreciated.
cool. I
So
like those rhinos. It was
I'm
competing
slowly
with Ellie's
diversifying.
rhinos there, Josh.
Yeah, it was.
Disco Rhinos. I think I've got some out. Yeah, as I've been talking, I've just been sorting through some cards because I'm trying to decide what I'm going to play for Legacy this week. But Disco Rhinos.
Yeah.
You see.
This
I've actually got,
podcast.
to be fair, I've actually got some Wills here as well. There's some Wills tokens.
Yeah, so I got
This
some of those now.
this podcast brought to you by the word heuristics and Ellie's tokens.
And then last round of the day was blue white control. We were watching there again. Finished my semi-final
Yep.
first. Got to watch some of his semi-final, and he was against Domain Zoo, and I was begging for Domain Zoo to win it because it's like I'm confident in that matchup. I know that matchup well, and I think I'm favored depending on the build.
Yeah.
Against blue white control, I know what it does. I haven't played against it, but I didn't think that would come into it because I know the strategies. I know what's going on well enough.
Yeah.
But my God, am I an underdog?
Yeah.
And then he won.
I'd say with your build, like if it was Teamer, I'd probably want the control player in Teamer.
I
Actually,
would,
quite
yeah.
a good reps.
If I was on
But not-
Teamer, I would prefer that. But because I was on the domain, I really
Yeah.
wanted that sort of domain battle. But instead, I got the blue white control, and I knew I was an underdog. I got closer than I thought I would. Like I really applied the pressure.
I think that last game you got so close. Just
But it
the fire ice was one draw wrong on drawing it to just get him. Oh, that was heartbreaking.
The way it goes.
Was that a 2-1 loss or?
It was a 2-1. I like game 1. I got him to 2 life. Fired off a fire ice to try and get the lethal on my turn, just as a like, do you have the counter spell?
Yeah.
If you do, we're going to keep playing, but you're quite favored at this point because of the board state. If you don't have it, I've one game up. That's massive.
Yeah,
he had it. He very quickly closed the game out with like the 1 ring and being able to untap it to draw like a good sort of 7 cards a turn and buried me in value.
Minamo 1 ring is powerful.
So, but I got him. I was happy. I got him to a spot where if he had drawn worse, I'd won it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I needed to do. Game 2, I managed to just about eke it out with a fairly similar route, and then game 3 pushed him, but I didn't get anywhere close. I made a similar call, but this time it was like I'm putting a lot of pressure on the board. If you have Supreme Verdict, I've got no way to come back from that. I've put all my eggs in this basket. If you don't, if you've just got single spell removals, this game is mine.
Yeah.
And he had the verdict. I'm
very favored and I'm very for make them have it.
I think the only way, like, I'm such an underdog. I think I just had to create a scenario where it is like, if you have this exact setup, you will win. If you don't, I think you're going to struggle. And I managed to do that in all 3 games. I set up scenarios where I was on the front foot with pressure and just do you have this card? Yes or no?
And if they did have that card, can you play around that card? No. Well, don't. Just don't play. Don't play. If you can't play around it, just don't. And that's my philosophy. Like, even if you think, if I don't do something now, I've lost this game. If they've got a counter spell, fair one. And they have it, fair one. Like, all right, you got me.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to take risks to go for the victory.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time you'll lose more games by not taking those risks because you will allow them to draw into it or into things that will beat you.
I won a game once. It was only like I think it was like an FNM or something small, but I won a game once against a good player because it was when Settle the Wreckage was in standard, and I had 2 white mana up or 4 mana up, 2 white mana, and I had 2 lands in hand, and I just basically highlighted Settle the Wreckage until I drew something and I won the game.
Yeah.
But I didn't even play Settler Wreckage in my deck.
But I think
Didn't have
I think it is important sometimes, especially like in bad matchups, is you've got to work out what is your route to victory.
Yeah.
Like I know they've got so many counter spells and kill spells and stuff. I knew I would need to do something to win the game. Like I couldn't just go through a normal game plan. I'd have to try and overload him on some matrix, whether it's
Yeah.
like his mana or his cards in hand or just counter spells or
Yeah.
kill spells. And I picked those battles in each game, and I came up short. But I was heavy underdog. I think I played well. Nothing I can do. He picked a good
No.
deck for what he came up against. Can't argue. He came in 8th seed, won the top 8.
It seemed like in this deck though, like it seems when to know when to take the guild packs out, because that's a massive chunk of sideboard to bring in. I think these sort of control mirrors or control sort of strategies, it's really easy to take them out because you know that you're just going to get blown up by a Leyline Binding or something, and you don't necessarily need the hexproof and the lifelink and all that good stuff.
It's a weird one. It's one like I would like if there was an RC or something coming up, I would want to be testing it so much to know whether I fully agree with the philosophy, because I had to look at some other people's sideboard guides because I hadn't played the deck much.
Yeah.
And the common pattern I saw was in decks like this, he was taking out the leyline of the guild packs for like counter spells and battling them on that fashion.
Because it was very new still at the time,
that.
right? Because MKM had just come out.
Yeah. Also, you're against these resource heavy matchups. Your draws are important. If you have 4 cards that are just dead,
yeah,
like they could be if they're literally anything else.
Yeah.
You just don't want them to be a possible draw.
Yeah, but it was one of those like I looked at what he was doing, I can completely see the logic, and I just didn't have time to sort of test the counter logic to see like is the other side of the coin more right?
Yeah, and you'll get a lot more out of that now as well, Jack. Violent Outburst banned, right? Let's Domain's here to stay. I think it's not a question between Teamer and Domain anymore.
I think Teamer is not a deck.
No,
anymore.
It isn't anymore.
It can't be. It can't be without Violent Outburst. Why are you playing Teamer? There's no reason to.
Value anymore, sadly. So I think it is gone.
What do you think Modern's going to look like? What is Modern going to look like now? Like
the Violent Outburst is banned. The top decks were like Rhinos, Yawgmoth, Amulets, maybe some others, but those
Aspergorios was on the rise, and Azorius One Ring was an answer to Rhinos.
Yeah, but those were Yorg, Amulet, and like
Rhinos was those were the best 3 by far.
Big 3. And the way the meta looked was Rhinos is good against those two. Those two sort of crush the rest of the field. So now you're trying to get rid of Rhinos, so those two just crush the rest of the field. Like I don't.
Yeah, but it's like one of those things. Is Rhinos dead? I don't think so. Right? It's not, I think it's completely fine.
Because the domain setup has appeared. No.
But it has killed off Living End.
I even think without Guild Pack, I do actually think Rhinos would have been like if that deck card wasn't printed. I do think Rhinos would still exist. Like you just play the fairies.
Like the domain Rhinos deck was a thing before, before the Guild Pack Scion brokenness came out, and it was just they had some better removal options, but they sort of suffered in these areas. But then with the Guild Pact and the Scion, it offers such an explosive route that
I think without Guild Pact and Scion and this ban happening, Rhinos would have definitely dropped a peg. It wouldn't be tier 1 anymore.
Definitely.
I think it still stays tier 1 now, but it definitely wouldn't have been tier 1 if the Guild Pact didn't exist.
So I think decks we're going to watch out for that become problematic. I think
Yawgmoth is my number 1.
Yawgmoth is going to be problematic, and I do think Titan. I don't know how the hell Titan's not had anything interaction with that deck is not so. Also, I think Tron matchup's got a lot worse for Rhinos. I say because I'm a Rhino player as well. And I'm interested with this Goryo's Vengeance deck.
Yeah, Esper Goryo's has been rising. It's doing well. It's quite consistent. It's well built. It does its thing most of the time. Its biggest issues always its mana base can be a little tricky, and it's a bit painful of a deck. But it can just get you. It has both the avenue of grief and solitude scams, as you will.
It has instant speed attracts ephemerated. Look at top 20 cards.
Both Atraxa and Gristlebrand getting in there. It's a little rough sometimes.
Very quickly back on the Axiom tournament. The funny thing is, because it was a load of tables were lined up for their win-ins.
Yeah,
it is. It's in the deck.
This guy.
A a load of tables were lined up for their winning ins, and there was one table that was battling for the last slot in the top 8, and it was Coffers versus Goryo's Vengeance. And the two players went to time and unintentionally drew the last round. Neither of them wanted to concede. It makes, I can see why. So neither of them top 8'd, and that was then what Casper then snuck through based on that. If either of them had won, they would have come in as the 8th seed. But because they unintentionally drew the last round, Casper then got the 8th seed into the top 8.
Wow.
Was Casper the guy who won? Yeah.
Yeah, that was the blue-white player. Oof.
I think your Goryo's matchup would be quite good, actually.
Ooh, I don't think it is. I think we're meant to be hammered by it.
Well, Goryo's,
no
I
way.
think so.
Surely not. I mean, Goryo doesn't.
Other Rhinos players, that's what they've said.
Because they don't really play counter spells in Goryo's.
No, but they grief, take away your hand, play a massive threat, and you go, okay.
Yeah, but
maybe.
I think Goryo's Vengeance being instant speed is problematic because they can do that. They could potentially do that if they're on the play. They could do that while you've still got.
They do the Rhinos thing to you.
Yep. But so what I've heard is it's meant to crush Rhinos. I haven't tested it. I haven't looked at it properly to know.
Ephemerate. I can't believe that card's in Pauper, honestly.
That card's brutal.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is interesting with this Violent Outburst ban. We have. I think Yawgmoth is going to rise in stock because it was lowering. It was going down a lot. Rhinos was a problem for the deck. You had it, I think, at like 14% of the MTG top 8 game share or whatever. And now it's at 6, 7. And we'll see what happens now. It's going to start rising. Rhinos is definitely going to take a bit of a dive. I don't think terribly, but a fair bit.
No, I think it would probably stay around like 8% or something on MTG top 8.
Living End is gonna. Living End, I think, is tier 2 at best now. I don't see it staying.
I don't think it makes tier 2.
I was on the Discord today. We were talking about Electro Dominance? Or
Electro Dominance. Yeah, the red X card.
yeah. And talking about that.
I mean, do you want to play Electro Dominance as foretold instead of the? I mean, you have to now find Living End in your hand. That sucks.
I mean, to be fair, the amount of times I've had Rhinos in my hand, like maybe that's how Teema survives, but I doubt it.
But you can realistically suspend Rhinos and be good. You don't want to suspend Living End. That's the worst feeling in the world.
I think the interesting thing with the ban though is now Rhinos goes to Ardent Plea, which adds up to our white card count. So now we can start looking at like Solitude.
Yeah.
We've now got the white cards to pitch for that. We've got more now cards to pitch for our forces and our subtlety. So they have now.
Does Rhino start dropping red?
Consistent.
Just a small splash for Fire Ice, maybe?
I think that is it. I think that's
Fire Ice is free, right?
Sideboard text, but because we're domain for Scion, the mana's already sort of incidentally there for Fire Ice, so I think we keep that still.
Because what red cards does domain Rhinos even play? Was it just Fire Ice and that's it? Yeah, because you drop Violent Outburst.
I find my list. So I played a Wear and Tear in the side.
Literally Fire
otherwise,
Ice.
It was Violent Outburst and Fire Ice. So it's like we're not.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything besides color shifting our, Cascader realistically.
I mean, do you play any more Teferis in the main? You think with this?
I don't think there's room because I think you need 4 force in the main. Like, it really was a tool to stop other decks doing stuff. Like you counter the One Ring, you counter Karn, you count whatever stuff you're like Chord of Calling, whatever your opponent's doing, you're using it to fight that much more than you were push Violent Outburst through.
You need that interaction when you tap out on turn 3 too. You tap out turn 3, they go in their turn 4, sound, One Ring, no. Untap, here's my Rhinos.
Sure.
Like, every deck has something kind of scary they can
also
do if you tap out.
What's massively important as well, like Rhinos is now less aggressive because you can't use Violent Outburst as the tool to push in 2 more damage, which can sometimes be very, very relevant.
It came up in my quarterfinals and it came up in the semi-finals and won me both deciding games where I went Violent Outburst for damage.
Do you think anything else changes in the deck because of that? Any other cards that might?
I don't
honestly
think the cards change.
No, baseline. The only thing you change out let's say Jack's list or any other domain list I've seen is you just take out the Violent Outburst and put in the Iron Please and then test.
Like I would see how the mana base a little.
Would you play any Solitudes in the main now because of that?
Do you need to?
The problem with the domain Rhinos deck is like as a deck building thing, you go start off 25 lands, 12 cards of your Cascade package, 12 cards of your Domain package. That's 49 cards already. With the remaining slots, you then want Force of Negations and Subtleties, so you can interact in a meaningful way while tapping out for Rhinos.
The two decks that are issue is going to be Titan and
Yogg.
Yogg, yeah.
Solitude's great against both of those as well.
Also, well, yeah, I suppose.
There's so little room to actually like change cards in the main. The Domain builds, I think you're basically just looking at the sideboard for changes.
Is Solitude that impactful though for us?
It's good against those two decks specifically, right? Because if you can exile the thing, you can't Agatha Soul Cauldron it.
Leyline Binding though. We have Leyline Binding, which is much cheaper.
But you can you can still Boseiju a Leyline Binding. You can still remove it. You can't stop your card from getting exiled just suddenly, right? It's very hard to, at least.
I think I'd be more interested in fitting potentially
Teferi.
Maybe looking at maybe not Teferi, but is there any space for Tishana maybe?
Yeah, this was the thing at the FNM I sort of worked out was like I was struggling to get Tishana in because I was playing Teferi instead in the sideboard, and Teferi was a monster, so I didn't really want to drop her. So then she was competing with Endurance, but Endurance, when it's important, is free, which mattered massively because in those same games, if I had like Tishana in those spots, having to pay mana sucks.
Do you know what's massive though? Like now we've got rid of our Violent Outburst, our Endurance, our blue, our
green card counts down.
However, we do have Leyline the Guild Pact, and you probably want 4 Endurance because of that.
4 Shardless, 4 Crashing Footfalls. We've still got 12 cards in the main that are green.
And you bring in 3 to 4 Endurance, and they count each other.
So you've still got a decent green card count to do it.
Yeah.
And who knows what's the next green busted sideboard card they'll print next it? You never know. You know?
Modern's such a weird format because Modern is like it takes up so much people's attention, it takes up so much people's time. It's very popular. But people have this love-hate relationship with it. But I played it the other night with, like I said, with Jack's list with 5-0, and I had a great time.
I love Modern. It's my favorite format. Fun. It has been for a very long time.
Do you know what? For its misgivings, it's exciting. Now, where I'm from, the playgroup is massively into Pauper, and I love Pauper. Like I love the format. I just don't get the excitement from Pauper I do from like Modern or other formats. Like I feel like it's quite. It's a great format, but I don't. There's no. It's not as exciting as your really powerful stuff that you can do in other formats. It's not as exciting as I don't know, like Goryo's. That's like what's going on here. Like the top decks in Modern are very more impactful than the top decks in say Pauper. Like Legacy as well, like some of the stuff you can do, it's so exciting and it's so thrilling. Like I feel like these sort of formats are quite unique in that aspect. Like I don't think the challenge of the challenge of winning the game I think is the same. Like I just don't feel like the drama is there in other formats like it is with Modern. In particular.
I've just found with Modern, like the room for playing and outplaying people is so big. Like the power of the cards is there, and it's because one of my favorite plays from like the RCQ season was I remember can't remember what it was, but I Force of Negationed their card, pitching something from my hand, leaving 3 mana up so that they couldn't Mystical Dispute me.
Yeah.
Where like it's just those extra plays and stuff where like I'm throwing cards away from my hand so I don't tap out so you can't fight like. It just opens up so many avenues for plays.
I don't think those plays. I don't think those plays are unique to Modern.
I found that I love Modern for it.
Yeah,
I've not touched stuff.
I think that's genuinely like good playing Magic. To be fair, good Magic player. But I don't know. I just find some of the like when you like I've had a tournament where like I've been stripped my hand of from being scammed, for example, and you're like this feels awful, and then you top deck a Shardless Agent, you're like. There's never a point in Modern where you feel like to me when I play Modern, if I feel like oh my god, what is my out? I can feel like there's an out still. Whereas if I'm playing say like a Standard or Pauper or something like that, I feel like there's a point in the game where like I have nothing. That's me. Like there's nothing I can draw.
I think Modern is the best embodiment of the answers are as good as the questions and vice versa. I don't think there's any other format that fits that better. I think a Pioneer has always struggled with the answers not being as good as the questions. Standards feels that way to me sometimes.
I feel like Standard's pretty good right now, though.
Legacy, yeah, Standard is very good right now. I think it's just Modern. I think does it better than all the others in terms of whatever your the big beefy strong thing is has answers, but then that means that you can still find it more, and it feels on par. The power level is not too much into one of these two aspects. It's about the same. That's what makes it feel good, I think.
I do feel like if you know what you want to beat with Modern, you can beat it. Like if you know what you want to beat, and that's why we had this conversation before. I love a format where there's a best deck because it focuses your deck build and your deck choice and your innovation. There's merits to have like a wide open meta, but when it comes to like wanting to win a tournament, you could like what do you prepare for? How do you focus? And then you come across this like random deck that you didn't even know existed. You don't know how it's played. You're like, I feel underprepared with the amount of preparation I put in, and I feel like if there's a best deck like Modern in 2018 when Is It Phoenix was a fine deck to be the bad guy, and I actually think Rhinos was a fine deck to be the bad guy. I think
A lot
if
of
you want to
sideboard
beat
hate
on
and
cast
options to beat it.
so many, and if you wanted to beat it, you can quite easily, like you can just beat that, and then it also created meant that the Rhino space that what are they hating on? Well, what kind of things are they hating? Actually, there's quite a lot. Flame of an Aura answered a lot of questions, but we don't play that anymore. Leyline Binding answered a lot of questions, but that's not necessarily permanent.
It's why I love Beseiju, because it was a great answer to so many of the things that hated against us. And it happened on curve. It was uncounterable. It was unscammable. Like it was a beautiful answer.
But now, like, do you want to be Beseiju and people with the amount of 4-5 color decks knocking around? I'd say one problem with Modern at the moment is that mana is way too free.
Yeah, mana's too good. Bring Wasteland to Modern.
This would be quite a good actually. How would you change Modern? Like, what would you do to change Modern? Like selfishly, like for your own, like it doesn't have to be a good reason, but how you would want to change it.
I would want to get rid of the 3-5 color stuff. Like I would want Triomes banned and just try and put more tax on, like, because it shouldn't be that every deck can just go, I'm going to go 5 color. Like the blue-white controller played in the finals was blue-white splashing 5 color. Domain Rhinos is Rhinos splashing 5 color. Like it's so many decks are just going, I can. Where's the downside? And I don't think that's good.
I think mine and probably, I mean, it'll never get done. Wizards will never do this. But ideally, I would love to see everything in Modern get unbanned completely until Modern Horizons 3 happens. Let that stuff come through. Let that, meta go for, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, whatever. And then they will ban everything that actually requires banning. I'm not saying
like they were Pioneer when it got announced.
Yeah, basically. I think it's the best way to do it is unban everything and do that, because there's so many cards on there that I don't know if they should or should not be on that ban list. There's a lot of questionable cards. There's some that I can absolutely think that yes, they should be. Eye of Ugin is my prime example. But there's some that I'm not sure. And the game has gotten so much more powerful in the last 5 years. That there's a lot of these cards that can't keep up, and I think it's fine to let that happen. Again, Wizards will never do this. They'll never allow that chaos. It'll affect the secondary market so harsh, and as much as they want to say they don't care about it, they absolutely do.
Yeah, they don't acknowledge it, but they definitely do.
They destroyed me on the Furies.
and
I bought my Furies, I think £6 each.
Oh, I bought mine for about 50 each.
Nice.
And they all got banned.
And
I think I've been fairly lucky with, say, for Orcish Bowmaster, for example. I bought the full art versions for like I think £23 each.
As someone getting into it, I've been getting rinsed.
Like Twitter on sort of what to get ahead. Twitter.
Don't you mean X?
Or X, yeah, what do you want to call it? X.
Yeah, no one calls it X. No one's ever gonna call it X, I think. But yeah, I think that's what I would do. I think that we'll see what happens now with Modern Horizons just around the corner. I'm excited to see it.
selfishly, what I would do is I would ban the card Amulet Titan. I think that card should
just the card
See?
Amulet Titan, yeah, specifically that card.
Oh,
Bye. Or just Amulet. See ya.
Yeah.
I would unban Faithless Looting.
Jesus Christ.
I want that chaos.
This is a man.
And yeah,
I love that card too.
The mana is just too free. It's just too free. Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's a great one to wrap it up on, guys. Thank you everyone for joining us on the first segment of Battle Chats. I hope you enjoyed our rambling and random talking about everything. As a final question to the two big Rhinos players here, will you stick to Domain Rhinos or will you change decks with this banning?
As it stands, I'm sticking, but it depends if the meta gets real funky, there's some other decks I would.
So Jack's not loyal. How about yourself, Josh?
I would try it. I don't think it's been nerfed as what people might think.
I think it's solid.
But I have access to other decks.
Okay.
I don't.
Is it the Rise of Infect for you, Josh? What do you